"You're the killer." The words sliced through the courtroom like a knife. The entire room froze. The judge's gavel slipped from his fingers, clattering against the wooden desk. The lawyers sat stiff in their chairs. The jury gasped in unison. Reporters, their cameras aimed and ready, stopped clicking as if the air had been sucked out of the room. The 15-year-old girl, Emma Carter, stood trembling in the middle of the courtroom, her voice echoing through the shocked silence. Her eyes, filled with tears but burning with fury, were locked onto Judge Harold Kensington. The judge's face drained of color. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The tension in the air was so thick that no one dared to breathe. Emma took a shaky step forward. "I know what you did," she whispered. Silence. No one moved. No one spoke. Then, just as suddenly, "Order in the court!" The bailiff shouted, stepping toward Emma. The sound of his voice broke the spell, and chaos erupted. Lawyers sprang from their seats, the judge's assistant rushed toward him, and security guards moved in. But Emma didn't back down. She pointed a trembling finger at the man who had spent decades sentencing criminals, the one person in the courtroom who was supposed to uphold justice. And now, she had accused him of the unthinkable. The question hung in the air. How did she know? 5 months earlier, Emma Carter wasn't supposed to be in court. She wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the justice system. She was just a regular girl, living in a quiet suburban neighborhood with her mom and little brother. Life wasn't perfect, but it was normal. Until it wasn't. It started with a disappearance. Her father, Detective James Carter, had been investigating a high-profile case, the kind that didn't make the news because it was too dangerous. He had always been a good man, teaching Emma about kindness, empathy, and standing up for what was right. Justice isn't always about punishment, he would tell her. It's about making things right. But then, one night, he never came home. At first, the police said he had gone missing on his own, that maybe he had run away because of stress. But Emma knew better. Her father would never abandon them. Something had happened. Days turned into weeks. The police investigation slowed down, then stopped. Her mother begged them to keep looking, but they treated her like a widow before they had even found a body. Emma refused to accept it. So, she started looking for answers herself. She searched through her dad's notes, piecing together clues. He had been looking into a case that involved powerful people. He had told her about corruption in high places, about how the real criminals sometimes wore suits and sat in offices instead of running through the streets. Then, she found it. A single page hidden in the bottom of his desk drawer, crumpled as if he had shoved it away in a hurry. A name was scrawled at the top. Judge Harold Kensington. Emma's stomach twisted. She knew that name. Everyone did. He was one of the most respected judges in the state, a man who had put countless criminals behind bars. But why was his name in her father's notes? Her father had suspected something, and now her father was gone. The realization hit her like a freight train. She had to find the truth. The problem was, she was just a 15-year-old girl. No one would take her seriously. So, she did the only thing she could. She started digging. She searched the internet for everything she could find about Kensington. She watched his old court cases, read articles, listened to interviews. She started noticing patterns. A lot of people who testified against him had disappeared. Some had been found dead. Others had simply vanished, as if they had never existed. The deeper she went, the darker it got. But she wasn't the only one looking. One night, she felt it, the eerie sensation of being watched. The feeling followed her for days. A black car parked too long near her school. A shadow outside her house that disappeared when she turned on the porch light. Then, one evening, someone broke in. Emma woke to the sound of shattering glass. She barely had time to react before she heard heavy footsteps downstairs. Her heart pounded as she reached for her phone, but before she could dial 911, the power cut out. Darkness swallowed the house. A figure moved in the hallway. Emma clamped a hand over her mouth, backing into the closet. She heard the creak of floorboards as the intruder moved closer. And then, silence. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, her breath shallow. She waited, her body frozen. Minutes passed, then an hour. Finally, she dared to move. The house was empty, but her father's files? Gone. And taped to her bedroom mirror was a single note. written in bold, black letters. Stop digging. Her blood ran cold. This wasn't just about her father anymore. Someone was trying to cover up something big, and if she didn't stop, she knew exactly what would happen next. She would disappear, just like him. But Emma wasn't going to stop. She couldn't, because she had just realized the truth. Her father had been right. And the man responsible for it all? Judge Harold Kensington. She just had to prove it. But she had no idea how dangerous that would be. And that before this was over, she would find herself standing in a courtroom, pointing at a powerful man, and saying the words that would freeze the world in place. You're the killer. The courtroom was chaos. Reporters jumped from their seats, flashing cameras blinding Emma as voices clashed all around her. The judge's face had turned pale, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. The bailiff rushed toward her, hand on his holster, as the gavel slammed down again and again. Order! Order in the court! Emma stood her ground. Her hands trembled, but she clenched them into fists. She had said it. She had spoken the truth in front of everyone. But now, what would happen? Judge Harold Kensington finally found his voice. You, he started, but his voice cracked. He cleared his throat, regaining his composure. You will explain yourself immediately, young lady. Emma swallowed hard. The weight of every eye in the room bore down on her, waiting, doubting. She opened her mouth. Before she could speak, a loud bang echoed through the room. Someone had slammed the doors open. A man in a dark suit stormed in, his face tense. The courtroom quieted as everyone turned to look. The man pulled out a badge. FBI, he announced. This trial is now under federal jurisdiction. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Emma's heart raced. Did this mean they believed her? But the way the judge's eyes darkened told her everything. This wasn't over. Not even close. 2 months earlier, Emma had started planning carefully. The break-in had changed everything. She wasn't just looking for answers anymore. She was fighting for her life. She had to be smarter. She started by copying everything she could find onto a USB drive. Notes from her father's investigation, strange patterns in Judge Kensington's cases, missing people linked to him. She needed proof, real proof, something no one could ignore. But every time she got close, something terrible happened. One night, she tried to meet a woman who had worked with her father, a former court reporter named Linda Grayson. Linda had texted her, saying she had information about Kensington. They agreed to meet at a quiet coffee shop on the edge of town. Emma arrived early, her hoodie pulled over her head, her stomach twisting with nerves. Minutes passed, then an hour. Linda never showed. Instead, she saw it on the news the next morning. A car accident. Linda Grayson had been killed on the way to their meeting. Emma's blood turned to ice. She tried to tell herself it was a coincidence. But deep down, she knew. This was a warning. And now, she was next. She needed help. But who could she trust? Not the police. Not after they had ignored her mother's cries for help. Not her teachers. Not her friends. This was bigger than anything she had ever imagined. Then, she remembered something her father had once told her. There's always someone listening, Emma, even when you think you're alone. He had been talking about his old partner, an FBI agent he had worked with years ago, Special Agent David Reynolds. She just had to find him. But first, she needed a way into Kensington's world. She needed to get close enough to expose him. And that's when she made the most dangerous decision of her life. She forged a letter, pretending to be a law student, and applied for an internship at the courthouse. And somehow it worked. Within weeks, she was inside Kensington's courtroom, walking the very halls where justice was supposed to live, and where she knew it had died. She kept her head down, doing what she was told. But every night, she searched. Files, emails, anything that connected Kensington to the missing people her father had been investigating. And then, she found something. A list. A list of names. Her father's name was on it. And it wasn't the only one she recognized. Some were people who had disappeared. Others were people who had testified in Kensington's courtroom. Some were dead. And at the bottom of the list, written in the same scratchy handwriting, Emma Carter. Her breath hitched. She wasn't just in danger. She was next. She barely had time to react before she heard the shuffle of footsteps behind her. Someone was there. She spun around. Too late. A pair of hands grabbed her from behind, yanking her into the darkness. Her scream never made it past her lips. And then, blackness. Back in the courtroom, Emma barely had time to process the memory. The FBI agent stepped forward, his sharp eyes scanning the room. This trial is being halted pending further investigation. The judge's face twitched. That's outrageous. On what grounds? The agent didn't flinch. Classified information. Emma felt a lump rise in her throat. Did they actually know something? The judge straightened. His expression smoothed into one of cold authority. I don't appreciate my courtroom being turned into a circus. The agent stared at him, unmoved. And I don't appreciate people covering up crimes. The room was so silent you could hear a pin drop. And then, the doors burst open again. This time, it was two officers. They walked straight toward the judge's bench. And before anyone could react, they placed him in handcuffs. The courtroom erupted, but Emma barely heard it. She was staring at Kensington's face. For the first time since she had accused him, she saw something in his eyes. Not anger. Not authority. Fear. Because he knew. She wasn't done yet. Not until she found out the whole truth. Not until she found out what really happened to her father. And not until she made sure Kensington paid for everything. The sight of Judge Harold Kensington in handcuffs should have felt like victory. It should have been the moment Emma had dreamed of, the moment when everything she had fought for finally paid off. But instead, all she felt was the heavy weight of something being wrong. The judge didn't panic. He didn't protest. He didn't shout, threaten, or demand a lawyer like a guilty man would. Instead, he smirked. A slow, knowing smirk that sent a chill down Emma's spine. The courtroom was chaos. Reporters shouting questions. The gavel pounding over and over as the bailiff tried to restore order. But Kensington? He just turned his head, looked right at Emma, and winked. And that was the moment she knew. This wasn't over. Not even close. For days earlier, Emma's head throbbed as she came back to consciousness. The air smelled damp, like old wood and rust. Her arms ached, her wrists sore. She tried to move, but her hands were tied behind her back. She was sitting in a chair, her ankles bound to its legs. A single light bulb flickered above her, casting shadows along the cold cement walls. She wasn't in the courthouse anymore. She had been taken. A shiver ran through her. Where am I? Who took me? Her heart pounded. The last thing she remembered was sneaking into the judge's office late at night, searching through his files. She had found that list, the one with her father's name on it. And then, someone grabbed her. The memory hit her like a brick. She had been knocked out. And now, she was here. A door creaked open. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. And then, a voice. You really should have stopped digging. Emma's breath caught in her throat. The man who stepped into the light wasn't a stranger. He was Detective Greg Harrison, a cop, her father's old friend. The same man who had told Emma's mother that James Carter had probably just walked away from his job. The same man who had refused to investigate his disappearance. She stared at him in shock. You work for him, Harrison sighed, shaking his head like she was some troublesome kid who had gotten in too deep. You don't understand, Emma. There are things bigger than you. Bigger than your father. She gritted her teeth. My father was a good man, and you helped get rid of him. Harrison didn't deny it. He just sighed again, stepping closer. You think you know the truth, but you don't. Judge Kensington isn't the man you should be afraid of. Emma froze. A strange feeling crept up her spine. What are you talking about? She whispered. Harrison crouched down so they were eye level. There are powerful people in this city. People who control everything. The police. The judges. The cases that make it to trial. The ones that disappear. His voice lowered. Your father was getting too close to the truth. That's why he had to go. Emma's stomach twisted. So you killed him. Harrison shook his head. No, but I know who did. She felt like the air had been sucked from her lungs. But before she could say anything, another voice cut through the room. Enough. The door creaked again. A second man entered, his face shrouded in shadows. Emma squinted, her pulse quickening. Then the man stepped into the light. Her world tilted. It was the district attorney. Mark Davenport, the man responsible for prosecuting criminals. The man who had appeared on the news countless times, talking about justice. And now, he was standing here, in a dark room, staring down at her like she was nothing. Emma's blood turned to ice. "You," she breathed. Davenport gave a thin smile. "You're a smart girl, Emma. Too smart." He turned to Harrison. "Take care of it." Emma's heart nearly stopped. "Take care of it." "No. No, no, no." Harrison grabbed her by the arm. "Come on, kid," she thrashed, struggling against the ropes. "No, you can't." A sharp pain shot through her head. Everything went black. Back in the courtroom, Emma gripped the edge of the table, her fingers digging into the wood. Kensington was being led away in cuffs. The cameras were on him. The reporters were focused on him. And that's when she realized. It was all a distraction. He had let this happen. Because while everyone was looking at him, the real mastermind was still out there. Still watching. Still waiting. And if she didn't act fast, she was next. The handcuffs clicked around Judge Kensington's wrists, but his smirk never wavered. Emma's stomach churned as she watched the scene unfold. The cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, the jury whispered among themselves, but she could barely hear any of it. Because she knew. This was a setup. The FBI agents moved quickly, their faces unreadable, but Emma wasn't fooled. This was too easy. Judge Kensington, a man with so much power, had been arrested in front of the entire world, and yet, he wasn't afraid. No, he was expecting this. And that meant one thing. Someone even bigger was still out there. Emma's mind raced back to the dark room, to Detective Harrison's words. "Judge Kensington isn't the man you should be afraid of." Her heart pounded. If Kensington was willing to take the fall, it meant whoever was pulling the strings. Asterisk, asterisk, the real monster behind everything. Asterisk, asterisk was still free. And if they thought arresting Kensington would make her stop digging, they were dead wrong. 2 nights before the trial, Emma sat in her bedroom, her fingers trembling as she plugged in the USB drive. She had hidden it under a loose floorboard in her closet, wrapped in layers of cloth to keep it safe. Now, she needed to know what was on it. She clicked the first file. A video. Her father's voice filled the speakers. "If you're watching this, something has happened to me." Emma's breath hitched. She covered her mouth with her hand, blinking back tears. "I don't have much time, but I found something. Something that could take down Kensington and the people he works for. I need to expose them before it's too late." Emma leaned in, heart hammering. People he works for? Her father had always believed in the law and justice. But what if he had discovered that the very system he trusted was built on corruption? Kensington is powerful, but he's not the top of the chain. There's someone else. Someone bigger. If I disappear, Emma, find David Reynolds. He's the only one you can trust. Her breath caught in her throat. Special Agent David Reynolds. The same agent who had stormed into the courtroom today. She yanked out the USB and grabbed her phone. She had to find Reynolds now. Back in the courtroom, Judge Kensington was almost at the exit when Reynolds stepped in front of him. The 2 men locked eyes. Kensington chuckled. "You really think you've won?" Kensington asked, his voice calm. Reynolds didn't answer. He simply motioned for the officers to continue escorting him out. But Emma wasn't watching Reynolds. She was watching the man sitting in the back row. Mark Davenport, the district attorney, the man who had ordered her father's death. And now, he was watching her. Their eyes met. A chill ran down her spine. He smiled. A slow, deliberate smile. And then, he stood up and walked out of the courtroom. Emma shot to her feet. She couldn't let him leave. She shoved through the crowd, her pulse roaring in her ears. "Agent Reynolds," she shouted. He turned just as she reached him. "What's wrong?" She grabbed his arm, gasping for breath. "It's not Kensington," she blurted out. "He's part of it, but he's not the one in charge. It's Mark Davenport." Reynolds' face darkened. Then, a loud, sharp bang. A gunshot. Screams erupted. People ducked, chairs toppled over. Emma spun around just in time to see Judge Kensington collapse. Blood bloomed across his chest. Emma's breath caught. Kensington had been shot. And standing by the courtroom door was a man in a black ski mask. Before anyone could react, he turned and bolted. "Stop him!" Reynolds shouted, shoving past people. Emma's body moved before her mind could catch up. She tore through the chaos, her feet slamming against the marble floor as she sprinted toward the exit. She couldn't let him get away. She reached the hallway just as the masked man shoved open the emergency exit. The second she stepped outside, the cold air hit her like a slap. She barely saw the dark van parked in the alley before. The masked man jumped in. The tires screeched. Emma lunged forward, her fingers barely grazing the back of the van. But it was too late. The van sped off, disappearing around the corner. And just like that, the only person who might have led her to the truth was gone. 30 minutes later, the courthouse was locked down. Sirens wailed in the distance, and officers swarmed the scene. Judge Kensington was dead. Emma sat on the courthouse steps, arms wrapped around her knees. Reynolds crouched next to her. "Are you okay?" She nodded slowly, but inside, her mind was racing. The gunman had been waiting. Ready. This wasn't a random attack. Someone had silenced Kensington before he could talk, and she had a feeling she knew exactly who had given the order. Mark Davenport, the district attorney, the real mastermind, the man who had just walked away, without a scratch. Emma clenched her fists. This wasn't over. Not even close. The courthouse was in chaos. Judge Kensington was dead. The gunman had escaped. And Emma? She sat on the courthouse steps, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. The truth was right in front of her. Mark Davenport had won this round. And if she didn't act fast, she wouldn't make it to the next. Agent Reynolds crouched beside her. "We need to get you somewhere safe," he said in a low voice. Emma didn't move. She stared at the courthouse doors, where officers were rushing in and out, shouting orders. The whole city was watching now, but none of them knew the real danger. "I can't just sit back," Emma said, her voice tight. "If Davenport is really behind this, he's going to keep covering his tracks." Reynolds hesitated. "Emma, you've done enough. Let us handle it." She turned sharply toward him. "Like you handled my dad's disappearance?" Reynolds winced. Silence. Emma pushed to her feet. "I have proof," she whispered. "The files my dad left. Names, transactions, missing people, everything." Reynolds stood, scanning the area like they were being watched. "Where?" Emma hesitated. "I need to go home." Reynolds nodded. "Then let's move. Now." The ride home. Reynolds drove, his grip tight on the steering wheel. Emma sat in the passenger seat, her mind racing. "This goes deeper than I thought," Reynolds muttered. "I always suspected Kensington was dirty, but if Davenport is involved, we're dealing with more than just a corrupt judge." Emma swallowed hard. "We're dealing with the people who control the justice system." Reynolds didn't argue. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen, then held it to his ear. "This is Reynolds. I need a full background pull on Mark Davenport. Any offshore accounts, sealed case files, anything that doesn't add up." Emma turned to him. "Will that even work?" Reynolds let out a breath. "It's a start." But Emma knew Davenport wasn't going to wait for them to gather evidence. He was already erasing his tracks. And if she wasn't careful, she'd be next. The house wasn't safe. The second they pulled into her driveway, Emma knew something was wrong. Her front door was open. A shiver ran down her spine. Reynolds shut off the engine. "Stay here." Emma ignored him, stepping out of the car. "Emma." Reynolds reached for her arm, but she shook him off. She couldn't just sit back. Her home had already been broken into once. But now it was different. She stepped onto the porch. The door hung slightly ajar, the lock shattered. Reynolds moved ahead of her, gun drawn. "Stay behind me." Emma's hands clenched into fists. They stepped inside. The living room was trashed. Papers were scattered across the floor. Cushions were slashed open. The TV was shattered. Whoever had come here, they were looking for something. Her stomach twisted. The USB. She bolted toward her bedroom. "Emma, wait," Reynolds hissed, but she was already moving. She shoved open the closet, dropped to her knees, and reached under the loose floorboard. Her fingers touched nothing but air. The USB was gone. No, no, no. Her breath hitched. She clawed at the wood, searching, hoping she had just misplaced it. But deep down, she knew. They had taken it. Davenport's people. Reynolds knelt beside her. What was on it? Emma stared at the empty space where her last hope had been, and then a single piece of paper caught her eye. A note. She picked it up, her hands shaking. 2 words, written in bold, black ink. Too late. A lump rose in her throat. Reynolds read over her shoulder. His jaw clenched. They knew exactly what they were looking for. Emma felt cold, like she was already a ghost. They're not just erasing evidence, she whispered. They're erasing everyone who knows the truth. She looked up at Reynolds. And we're next. The call that changed everything. Reynolds pulled out his phone. We need to move. Now. Emma stood, her knees shaking. Where? Reynolds tapped his phone against his leg. Somewhere safe. But before he could make the call, the phone buzzed. Emma's heart skipped. Reynolds frowned, checking the screen. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Reynolds. Silence. And then, a voice. Low, calm, deadly. You're running out of time, Agent. Reynolds stiffened. Who is this? A soft chuckle. You know exactly who I am. Emma's blood ran cold. Davenport. Reynolds's grip tightened on the phone. You have no idea what kind of mistake you're making. Another chuckle. Mistake? No, Agent. The mistake was letting you and the girl live this long. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Davenport's voice lowered. You think you've found the truth? You haven't even scratched the surface. Reynolds's face darkened. Where's the USB? A pause. Then, I have everything I need. Emma's stomach twisted. Davenport had one. Reynolds opened his mouth, but before he could speak, the line went dead. A heavy silence settled over the room. Emma's hands curled into fists. She wasn't going to let it end like this. They had taken her father. They had taken the evidence. But they hadn't taken her. And now, she had only one option left. If they wanted her silenced, she had to make sure the whole world heard her first. She turned to Reynolds, fire burning in her chest. We're not running, she said. Reynolds met her gaze. Then what are we doing? Emma's voice was steady. We're going to expose them. She grabbed her backpack and slung it over her shoulder. And we're going to do it tonight. The weight of the moment pressed down on Emma's chest, but she refused to buckle under it. Davenport had won the battle. He had stolen the USB. He had erased the evidence. He had even killed Kensington to cover his tracks. But the war wasn't over. Not yet. Emma turned to Reynolds. We need to get to the media. Reynolds frowned. That's not how this works. We need solid proof. Emma's hands clenched into fists. We had proof, but Davenport took it. Now, we don't have time to play by the rules. She stepped closer, her voice lowering. He knows we're still alive. If we don't act fast, we won't be for much longer. Reynolds sighed, rubbing his temple. Emma, listen to me. We don't even know how deep this goes. Kensington was powerful, but Davenport? He's on another level. If we take this to the media without hard evidence, he'll bury us before we can say a word. Emma knew he was right, but she also knew something else. Davenport wasn't going to stop hunting them. She had one chance to turn the tables. One chance to make sure he couldn't silence her. And that meant going to someone who couldn't be ignored. A journalist. Not just any journalist, a national one. Someone powerful enough to take down Davenport. Her mind raced through possibilities before it landed on a name. Alicia Monroe. An investigative reporter from Washington, D.C. Monroe had exposed corruption in high places before. If anyone could bring this story to light, it was her. Emma grabbed her phone and started typing Monroe's name into a search engine. Reynolds frowned. What are you doing? Emma didn't answer. She scanned through Monroe's latest articles. Then she found her contact page. Her email was there. So was her office address. Emma's heart pounded. We need to get to her. She's our best shot. Reynolds hesitated. Emma. She turned to him. We don't have time to argue. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Fine. But we do this my way. We stay off the grid, and we don't trust anyone. Emma nodded. Agreed. On the run. They left the house immediately. Emma stuffed some clothes and cash into a backpack. Reynolds kept his gun close, eyes darting around as they moved. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every car that passed by made Emma flinch. Davenport had people everywhere. The second they hit the road, Emma felt the tension tighten around them like a noose. Reynolds kept the car at a steady speed, avoiding main highways. We can't use credit cards. Can't stop anywhere too long. Emma gripped the strap of her bag. Do you think they're following us? Reynolds didn't answer, which meant yes. They drove for nearly an hour in silence. The city lights faded into darkness as they crossed state lines. Then, a black SUV appeared in the rearview mirror. Emma's stomach twisted. It was staying too close. Reynolds noticed it too. His grip on the steering wheel tightened. Hold on. Then, he swerved. The tires screeched as he took a sudden turn onto a side road. The SUV followed. Emma's breath hitched. They were being chased. Reynolds cursed under his breath. They're not letting us go. Emma twisted in her seat, heart pounding. The SUV was gaining on them. Then, another car appeared ahead of them. Black, tinted windows. They were being boxed in. Reynolds slammed the brakes. The car skidded to a stop just before the second vehicle could cut them off. Emma's hands trembled as she reached for the door handle. What do we do? Reynolds reached for his gun. We fight. The SUV doors swung open. Two men in suits stepped out. No badges. No names. Just Davenport's men. One of them pulled something from his pocket. A silencer. Emma's breath caught. They weren't here to kidnap them. They were here to eliminate them. Run! Reynolds shouted. Emma didn't hesitate. She threw open the door and bolted. She heard Reynolds fire off a shot behind her. The men ducked, returning fire. Bullets whizzed past her. She ran through the trees, heart hammering, feet slamming against the dirt. Don't stop. Don't stop. Then, a hand grabbed her wrist. She screamed, twisting, kicking. Emma, it's me. She stopped thrashing. Reynolds. He pulled her forward. We need to disappear now. She barely had time to process before he dragged her into the darkness. They ran. Branches whipped at her face. Her lungs burned. But she kept moving. Because if she stopped, they would die. A new plan. They ran for what felt like hours. By the time they reached an old gas station miles away, Emma could barely breathe. Reynolds checked the road behind them. No sign of the men. For now, we need to change cars, he muttered. They know this one. Emma swallowed, wiping sweat from her forehead. What now? Reynolds looked at her. His eyes were sharp. Now? We stop running. Emma frowned. What? He took a deep breath. Davenport doesn't think we have anything on him anymore, right? She nodded. Because he stole the USB. Reynolds smirked. Then let's make him think we still do. Emma's eyes widened. They were going to turn the game around. Reynolds pulled out his phone. I'm going to call Monroe. Emma felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. They weren't just running anymore. They were fighting back. And this time, Davenport wouldn't see it coming. Reynolds dialed the number with steady hands, but his jaw was tight, his mind calculating 100 different ways this could go wrong. Emma held her breath. If Alicia Monroe picked up, this could be their chance to expose Davenport before he could silence them. The phone rang once, twice, then, Monroe. Emma's heart leaped. Reynolds didn't waste a second. Alicia, it's David Reynolds. We need to meet. Now. There was a pause, then a sharp intake of breath. Reynolds? You vanished years ago. What the hell are you mixed up in? He exhaled. Something bigger than either of us. And we don't have much time. A beat of silence. Then, where? Emma and Reynolds exchanged a glance. Somewhere public, Reynolds said. Somewhere they can't touch us. Monroe thought for a moment. Then, Union Station. Midnight. Food court. The line went dead. Emma exhaled, her pulse still racing. She's in, Reynolds confirmed. Emma clenched her fists. Then let's end this. A trap or an opportunity? They ditched their car a mile away and took a bus into the city. Every shadow, every passing glance, made Emma's skin crawl. Were Davenport's men already here? Watching? Waiting? Union Station was still busy, even at night. Travelers moved in and out, dragging suitcases, sipping coffee, rushing for trains. It was the perfect place for a meeting, and the perfect place for an ambush. Reynolds scanned the crowd. See her? Emma's eyes darted around. Then there, a woman with sharp brown eyes, a leather jacket, and a press badge clipped to her pocket. Alicia Monroe. They approached cautiously. You got 2 minutes, Monroe said, crossing her arms. Reynolds pulled out his phone, opening a file. Judge Harold Kensington is dead. Monroe's face didn't change. I saw. Mark Davenport is behind it. Now she reacted. A flicker of something. Surprise? Interest? Emma leaned in. My father was investigating him before he disappeared. Her voice wavered, but she pushed through. We had proof, but Davenport's people stole it. They're trying to erase everything. Monroe studied them both, her eyes sharp. If I'm going to run this, I need more than words. Reynolds nodded. We're going to give you a reason to dig. We're going to make them panic. Emma watched Monroe's expression carefully. For the first time, she saw something else in the reporter's eyes. Curiosity. And something else. A challenge. Monroe smirked. All right, kid. Let's make some noise. The plan that changed everything. Emma didn't sleep that night. She and Reynolds holed up in a rundown motel, their only light coming from the glow of her laptop screen. They weren't going to just expose Davenport. They were going to force him into the open. Reynolds sent Monroe a list of every name her father had connected to Kensington and Davenport. The missing, the murdered, the silenced. Emma wrote a statement, one that made it clear she knew everything. Then Monroe did what she did best. She leaked it. The next morning, Emma woke up to the sound of her phone vibrating. She groggily reached for it, then froze. Her name was everywhere. Her heart pounded as she clicked the first headline. 15-year-old accuses district attorney of corruption. The case that could take down the justice system? Another one. Did Judge Kensington die for a cover-up? Another. Where is Mark Davenport? Emma turned to Reynolds, eyes wide. It's working. Reynolds barely reacted. He was already up, checking his gun. Then we need to be ready. Emma swallowed. For what? Reynolds looked at her, deadly serious. For what comes next? Davenport strikes back. By noon, the story had spread like wildfire. TV anchors debated it. News stations played the clip of Kensington's arrest over and over. Monroe was already on air, demanding answers. And Davenport? He was silent. Too silent. Emma's gut twisted. He wasn't the type to hide. No. He was planning something. The motel phone rang. Emma jumped. Reynolds grabbed it first. Yeah. Silence. Then a voice Emma would never forget. Davenport. You've made a mistake. Reynolds didn't flinch. So have you. A chuckle. Cold. Amused. You think a little media circus will stop me? Emma's blood ran cold. Davenport's voice dropped lower. You don't understand what you've just started, kid. Then, click. Emma stared at the phone. She knew that voice. It was the voice of a man who wasn't worried. It was the voice of a man who still had a card to play. And that meant they weren't safe. Not yet. Reynolds grabbed his keys. We need to move. Emma stood, heart pounding. Where? Reynolds's jaw was tight. To someone who can finally end this. Emma frowned. Who? Reynolds met her gaze. The only person Davenport fears. The final name on the list. They drove in silence, tension thick in the air. Emma had no idea where they were going. Then, they pulled up to a prison. Emma's stomach flipped. What are we doing here? Reynolds parked. Getting answers. He led her inside, flashing his badge at the guards. Then, they were led down a cold, empty hallway. A steel door opened, and Emma's breath caught, because sitting inside was a man she never expected to see again. A man everyone thought was dead. A man who knew Davenport's darkest secret. Emma stared. The man looked up, and then, he smiled. It was her father. Emma's legs nearly gave out beneath her. Her father, Detective James Carter, sitting in a cold, metal chair inside a prison cell, very much alive. Her breath caught. This wasn't possible. He had been gone for months. Davenport's men had killed him. They had wiped out his investigation. But here he was. Emma's vision blurred as she stumbled forward, gripping the bars. Dad. Her voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. The man in the chair tilted his head slightly, taking her in. His face was thinner than she remembered, his beard unshaven, his eyes darker, heavier. But beneath it all, it was him. James Carter leaned forward, hands shackled together, and exhaled a small, shaky breath. "Emma," she gasped, and before she could stop herself, she pressed her forehead against the bars, gripping them so tight her knuckles turned white. Tears blurred her vision. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But it was. It was him. Reynolds stood silently behind her, his face unreadable. Carter glanced at him, then back at Emma. "How?" His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in weeks. "How did you find me?" Emma swallowed hard, still trying to wrap her mind around this. I thought you were dead." Carter let out a breath, a humorless chuckle. "Not yet." He leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "But I guess Davenport wanted me forgotten more than dead." Emma wiped her face and forced herself to breathe. Why are you in prison?" Carter gave a slow, grim nod. "Because I got too close to the truth." Reynolds stepped forward. "Davenport set you up, didn't he?" Carter met his gaze. "I was onto him. I had files, recordings, evidence that would have put him away forever." His eyes darkened, but he caught on first. "Framed me for crimes I didn't commit. Paid off judges. Had the entire system against me. And then?" He let out a bitter laugh. "They threw me in here under a fake name. No trial, no press, nothing. Just erased me." Emma's blood ran cold. This was worse than she had imagined. Davenport hadn't just covered his tracks. He had locked her father away like he never existed. And now? Now, Emma was the only person standing in his way. She took a deep breath, shaking with anger. "We have to get you out." Carter's face softened. "Emma, listen to me. You don't understand how powerful these people are. If you don't back down, they will." "I know," she cut in. "They'll try to kill me." Again. Carter froze. Emma held his gaze, jaw tightening. "They've been chasing me since I started looking for you. They took the USB. They killed Kensington to cover it up. And now they know I won't stop." Carter stared at her for a long moment. Then, something changed in his eyes. "Pride. You're just like your mother," he murmured. Emma swallowed the lump in her throat. "I learned from the best." Reynolds checked his watch. "We don't have much time. If Davenport finds out Emma is here, this place won't be safe for long." Carter exhaled, shaking his head. "I don't know how you even found me." Reynolds smirked slightly. "Kensington kept records. We dug deep." Carter's jaw clenched. "Then you know how dangerous this is." Emma stepped closer. "Then help us stop him." Her father's eyes met hers. Then, after a long silence, he gave a small, knowing nod. "I have one card left to play. The final piece of the puzzle." 15 minutes later, Emma and Reynolds sat across from Carter, the prison guards giving them exactly 10 minutes to talk. Carter leaned in. "Davenport has people everywhere. In the courts, in the police, in the FBI." He glanced at Reynolds. "No offense. None taken," Reynolds muttered. Emma's mind was racing. "Then how do we beat him?" Carter's eyes flickered with something dangerous. "The same way I planned to beat him before they locked me up." He reached into the collar of his prison uniform. For a moment, Emma thought he was just shifting in his seat. Then, he pulled something out. A tiny, hidden flash drive. Emma's breath caught. "What?" Carter smirked slightly. "I always keep a backup." Reynolds' eyes widened. "You had evidence on you this whole time?" Carter's smirk faded. "I knew if I ever saw the outside of this place again, I'd need leverage. This is the original backup to the files they stole from Emma." His expression hardened. "Names, bank transactions, secret deals, everything. If this gets out, Davenport is finished." Emma nearly collapsed with relief. This was it. This was the final piece. Reynolds took the flash drive carefully, tucking it into his coat. "We need to get out of here now." Carter gave him a sharp look. "Not me. You too." Emma's stomach dropped. No, we're not leaving you here." Carter's face darkened. "Emma, listen to me. If I escape now, Davenport will send everyone after us. We need to be smart." He looked at Reynolds. You leak the files. Get Monroe to spread them. Once the world sees the truth, they won't be able to ignore it. Emma's hands curled into fists. And what about you? Carter exhaled. Once Davenport is exposed, the system won't protect him anymore. That's when you get me out. He gave her a small, sad smile. One fight at a time, kiddo. Emma's throat tightened. This wasn't fair. She had spent months searching for him, risking everything, and now she had to walk away? But she understood. Her father wasn't just thinking about himself. He was thinking about winning. Reynolds stood. We need to move. Now. Emma swallowed hard. Then, she grabbed her father's hands through the bars. Her voice was firm. I'm getting you out. Carter smiled softly. I know you will. Then, the prison alarms blared. Emma flinched. Reynolds' eyes widened. They know we're here. The guards rushed back in. Time's up. Move. Carter squeezed Emma's hands one last time. Go. Emma's heart shattered, but she forced herself to move. Because now, they had everything they needed. And this time, Davenport was the one running out of time. The prison alarms wailed through the corridors, their deafening blare vibrating through Emma's chest. She stumbled backward as the guards rushed in, locking the cell doors behind them. Her father disappeared behind thick bars and layers of security, his face unreadable. Reynolds grabbed her wrist. We have to go. Now. Emma's heart screamed in protest, but she forced herself to move. Because now, they had everything they needed to end this. The final proof. The escape. They bolted down the hallway, past uniformed guards shouting orders. Emma's pulse pounded as she ran beside Reynolds, her mind racing. The moment Davenport's men realized they had the flash drive, they'd come for them. They were out of time. Reynolds pulled out his phone as they reached the exit. Monroe, change of plans. Get to the drop point now. They burst through the heavy steel doors into the night. Cold air hit Emma's face, but she barely felt it. A black van was already pulling up, Monroe's team. They sprinted toward it. Then, gunfire. Emma yelped as bullets whizzed past her head. Reynolds yanked her down behind a car, cursing. They're already here. She peeked over the hood. 2 black SUVs. Headlights blinding. And stepping out? Davenport's men. She knew it before she even saw him. The smug, cold figure in a tailored suit. Mark Davenport himself. Emma's breath caught. He had come in person. That meant one thing. He wanted to make sure they didn't leave alive. Davenport adjusted his cuffs, his voice calm. You really should have stopped, kid. Emma's fingers curled into fists. Reynolds reached for his gun. Get to the van, he muttered under his breath. Emma's heart pounded. What? He met her gaze. I'll cover you. You have the drive. You're the only one who can expose him now. Emma's stomach twisted. No, she whispered. We go together. Reynolds' expression softened, just for a second. Then, he stood up and fired. Bullets cracked through the night. Emma ran. Her legs burned as she sprinted toward the van, her breath ragged. She could hear gunfire behind her, the clash of metal and glass shattering. But she didn't stop. A door swung open. Monroe's team pulled her in. Where's Reynolds? Monroe demanded. Emma turned, and her stomach dropped. Reynolds was still behind the car, pinned down. Too far. Davenport's men were closing in. No. Emma lurched forward, but Monroe held her back. Emma, we have to go. Tires screeched. Davenport's men rushed Reynolds. And just as they reached him, he tossed something. A single, small flash drive. Right into the van. Emma caught it on instinct, her eyes wide. Reynolds met her gaze. And then, they grabbed him. The last thing she saw before the doors slammed shut. Reynolds, shoved to the ground, Davenport's men surrounding him. Then, they sped away. Emma screamed, pounding on the door. We have to go back. Monroe grabbed her shoulders. If we go back, we all die. Tears blurred Emma's vision. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. She had lost her father once. She wasn't about to lose Reynolds too. But she had no choice. Monroe held up the flash drive, her expression grim. He gave us the only thing that matters now. Emma's breath hitched. The drive. Reynolds had sacrificed himself for it. And that meant She had to finish this. The world must see. Monroe's team worked through the night. They cracked the files open, uploaded them to every major news site, leaked them to every journalist in the country. Emma sat in a darkened room, staring at the screen, her heart aching. Reynolds was gone. Her father was still in prison. But the truth? The truth was finally out. She just had to hope it was enough. The broadcast that shook the nation. The next morning, the world changed. Every news station played it. Every article printed it. Corruption exposed. FBI files link district attorney to judge's murder. Missing people, fake cases, rigged justice system. Did one teenager just bring it all down? Davenport's name was everywhere, and he knew it. The last time Emma saw his face was on the news that evening. A single image of him being led away in handcuffs. Expression blank. But his eyes? His eyes burned with rage. Emma's hands clenched. It was over. She had won. But at what cost? 1 month later. The city was different now. The trials had begun. Davenport's empire had crumbled. Other names had come out. Officials, judges, politicians, all connected. The justice system was finally facing justice. Emma sat on a park bench, staring down at the small pendant in her hand. It was Reynolds' badge. The only thing they had found of him. No body. No confirmation. Just gone. She refused to believe he was dead. Somewhere, somehow, he was still fighting. And so was she. Her father's case was still open. And until she got him out, until she made sure no one could ever silence the truth again, her fight wasn't over. She stood up, tucking the badge into her pocket. A new battle was coming. And this time, she was ready. The city moved on. The headlines faded. The world turned to new scandals, new stories. But Emma? She couldn't move on. Not yet. Because Davenport was in prison, but her father still was, too. And Reynolds? She refused to believe he was dead. Some nights, she dreamed of him, escaping, fighting back, somehow surviving. Other nights, the dreams turned darker, and she woke up gasping, knowing he was still out there somewhere, alone. So she had a choice. Move on? Or finish what she started. One last fight. Emma sat across from Monroe at a diner, stirring her untouched coffee. Monroe raised an eyebrow. You're not done, are you? Emma shook her head. Not even close. Monroe sighed, setting down her phone. Emma, you've already done what no one else could. You took down Davenport. That should be enough. Emma met her gaze. Not when my dad is still rotting in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Monroe studied her, then exhaled. All right, kid. What's the plan? Emma pulled out a crumpled file. The people Davenport worked for? They're still out there. He wasn't the top. Just another pawn in something bigger. Monroe frowned. You think someone else is keeping your dad locked up? Emma nodded. And I'm going to find out who. Monroe tapped her nails on the table. This is dangerous. Emma smirked slightly. When has that stopped me before? Monroe shook her head, but she was smiling. Then, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and froze. Her face paled. Emma leaned forward. What? Monroe slowly flipped the phone around. A message. An untraceable number. For simple words. He's still alive. R. Emma's heart stopped. Her hands trembled as she grabbed the phone, staring at the screen. R. Reynolds. She gasped, nearly knocking over her coffee. It's him. Monroe's face was serious. Or it's a trap. Emma didn't care. She grabbed her backpack. Where are you going? Monroe called. Emma barely looked back. To finish this, the meeting. The message had coordinates. Emma knew it was stupid to go alone. She went anyway. It led her to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Classic movie villain setup, she thought bitterly. Her stomach twisted, but she stepped inside. Dust filled the air. Empty crates lined the walls. Then, a shadow moved. Emma's breath caught, and from the darkness, a man stepped forward. Her heart nearly exploded. Because it was him. Reynolds. Alive. Barely. His face was bruised, his arm in a sling, but he was alive. Emma nearly collapsed. Reynolds. A tired smirk. Took you long enough, kid. Then, a second shadow moved, and Emma's blood ran cold. because stepping out behind Reynolds was a man she had never seen before. But she knew he was the real mastermind. And just like that, she realized this wasn't over. Not yet. Emma's breath hitched as the man stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking against the concrete floor. He wasn't like Davenport. Davenport had been cruel, ruthless. But this man had power. Real power. The kind that didn't need to hide behind a badge or a courtroom. His suit was crisp, his silver hair slicked back. Calm, controlled, deadly. And the way he looked at her, like he had already won. Emma's hands curled into fists. Reynolds, alive but barely standing, watched him with tense, narrowed eyes. The man smiled. "Miss Carter," he greeted smoothly. "I've heard so much about you." Emma's voice came out hoarse. "Who are you?" The man chuckled. "I go by many names, but you can call me Mr. Blackwood." She stiffened. She had never heard that name before, and that terrified her, because if someone like him, someone running things from the shadows, had stayed hidden this long, he was worse than Davenport. Reynolds' voice was gravelly. "What do you want?" Blackwood's smile didn't waver. "To offer you both a choice." Emma's skin prickled. She already knew what was coming, but she didn't back down. Blackwood paced slowly, his voice casual. "You're smart, Emma. You understand that what you did, exposing Davenport, was impressive." He turned, his cold eyes locking onto hers. "But also foolish." Emma's heart pounded. Blackwood continued, "You thought Davenport was the king. But kings are only pieces on the board." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I am the one who moves the pieces." Emma clenched her jaw. "If you think I'm scared of you, you're wrong." Blackwood chuckled again. "Oh, Emma, fear is irrelevant. What matters is survival." Her stomach twisted, because that was a threat. A simple one, a cold one, but a real one. Blackwood clasped his hands. "Here is your choice. You walk away. You live your life. You let your father stay where he is." Emma's blood boiled. Blackwood smiled. "Or you fight. And if you fight," his expression darkened, "you will lose." Emma's fingers twitched. Reynolds shifted beside her. A silent message passed between them. They weren't backing down. Ever. Blackwood sighed, as if disappointed. A shame. Then, he snapped his fingers. And from the shadows, gunmen appeared. Emma's breath caught. They had walked into a trap. Blackwood's voice was smooth. "I told you. The board is already set." Emma's pulse roared in her ears. Reynolds gritted his teeth. They were surrounded. And then, a shot rang out. The attack. The warehouse exploded into chaos. Reynolds lunged forward, tackling Emma to the ground as bullets tore through the air. Emma gasped, rolling behind a crate. What? More gunfire. Not just from Blackwood's men. From someone else. Outside. Reinforcements. Emma's eyes widened. Monroe. She had followed them. Blackwood cursed. "Take them." His men rushed forward. Reynolds, still bleeding, pulled his gun and fired. 2 down. Emma's heart pounded. They needed to get out. Now. She grabbed a broken metal rod from the ground. Not much, but enough. One of Blackwood's men rounded the crate. Emma swung. The rod cracked against his skull. He collapsed. Reynolds grabbed her arm. "Move." They ran. Bullets whizzed past as they bolted toward the back exit. The door burst open just as they reached it. Monroe. She had a gun. And backup. "Get in the car," she yelled. Reynolds shoved Emma forward. They dived into the van. Tires screeched as Monroe hit the gas. And behind them, Blackwood just stood there, watching, calm, unshaken, like this had been his plan all along. Emma's breath was ragged. What just happened? Reynolds exhaled, pressing a hand to his bleeding arm. "We just met the real enemy." Monroe tightened her grip on the wheel. And Emma? She clenched her fists. This wasn't over. Not until she took him down. The van sped through the empty streets, engines roaring as Monroe weaved through back alleys and side roads, shaking off any possible tails. Emma's heart pounded. Reynolds groaned in the seat beside her, still pressing a hand to his bleeding arm. Monroe glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "You're not dying, are you?" "Not yet," Reynolds muttered. Emma could barely process what had just happened. Blackwood, the real mastermind. She had spent months believing Davenport was the monster, that he was the one pulling the strings. But now, Davenport was just another pawn. And the real king? Blackwood, the man who controlled everything. The courts, the law, the entire system. And now, he wanted her to disappear. Monroe took a sharp turn. We need a plan. Now. Emma inhaled sharply, trying to clear her thoughts. Blackwood thinks we're dead. Monroe raised an eyebrow. And Emma met her gaze. Let's make him believe it. Disappearing act. They drove straight to Monroe's safe house, an old, run-down apartment hidden in a district nobody cared about. Reynolds sank into the couch, wincing. Monroe grabbed a med kit and tossed it at him. Patch yourself up. I'm not playing nurse. Emma ignored them. She had one job now, to erase herself. She grabbed Monroe's laptop, fingers flying over the keyboard. Step 1. Wipe her digital footprint. Every search, every trace, every record linking her to the investigation, gone. Step 2. Fake her death. She scrolled through security camera feeds near the warehouse, picked one with a dark alley. Then, she edited the footage. Now, if anyone checked, it looked like Emma Carter had entered that warehouse, but never came out. Step 3. Go silent. She powered off her phone, ditched her SIM card, wiped Monroe's laptop before shutting it. She no longer existed. Monroe watched her, arms crossed. You're scary. Emma didn't smile. Because now, it was time to end this. Exposing the king. Emma turned to Reynolds. We have one shot at this. He nodded, understanding. They needed to do what they had done with Davenport, but bigger. Because Blackwood wasn't just a corrupt official. He was the system itself. Reynolds handed her a second flash drive, his backup. Davenport's files weren't the end, he said. We have enough here to make sure Blackwood never walks free again. Emma exhaled. We need more than a leak this time. Monroe smirked. Good thing I still have contacts. It took hours. A nationwide drop. They didn't just send the files to reporters. They sent them to everyone. Hackers, activists, political figures, even law enforcement agencies outside Blackwood's reach. Within minutes, the internet exploded. The collapse of a king. Blackwood's name flooded the news, more than Davenport ever had. Because the files? They exposed everything. Judges bought off. Cases rigged. People murdered. An entire underground system of corruption. And Blackwood? He was suddenly the most wanted man in America. Within 24 hours, the FBI raided his private estate. But the man who had controlled everything for so long? He was already gone. The final move. Emma sat in the safe house, watching the news, fingers gripping the armrest. Blackwood had vanished. Reynolds sat beside her, his voice grim. He won't go down without a fight. Emma knew that. She had seen the way he looked at her. The way he never panicked. Because Blackwood always had one last move. And they weren't safe until he was gone. Her mind raced. There had to be something they missed. Then, Monroe's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, froze, then looked at Emma. It's for you. Emma's stomach twisted. She took the phone, pressed it to her ear. Silence. Then, a slow, deliberate voice. Blackwood, you think you won? He murmured. Emma's grip tightened. Your entire empire just collapsed. A low chuckle. Empires can be rebuilt. Her heart pounded. Not this time. A pause. Then Blackwood's voice turned darker. This isn't over, Emma. She swallowed. Yes, it is. She hung up. And for the first time in months, she knew it was truly over. 1 year later, the justice system was still broken, but it was healing. Dozens of officials were arrested. Reform was happening. Davenport? Life sentence. Her father? Finally free. She sat across from him on their porch, drinking coffee as the sun rose. Still fighting? He asked. Emma smiled slightly. Always. Reynolds had disappeared again. But Emma knew. He was still out there. Watching. Waiting. And if Blackwood ever returned? So would she. Because now, she wasn't just a girl searching for justice. She was a warrior who had already won. And she was ready for whatever came next.